3 Buddhist teachings that quieted my mind in 7 days. We're going to dive deep into 3 Buddhist teachings that completely transformed my mind in just 1 week. Yes, you heard that right. 1 week. I know it sounds almost too good to be true, but I promise you, these aren't just philosophical concepts you've heard everywhere. These are real, raw, and honest teachings that I personally integrated into my daily life. I went through the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the triumphs, and the transformation I experienced was nothing short of amazing. I can't wait to share these with you because they have had such a profound impact on my mind, and I believe they can do the same for you. Whether you're looking to find inner peace, reduce anxiety, or just make a positive change in your everyday life, these Buddhist teachings can help you get there. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's dive right in. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end because these teachings aren't just theoretical. They are practical, actionable steps that you can start implementing today. Plus, I'll be sharing some personal stories and insights from my own journey, giving you a raw and honest look at how these ancient wisdom practices worked for me. So without further ado, let's get started. Teaching 1. Detachment. The first Buddhist teaching that changed my life was detachment. Now let me be completely honest with you. I was never good at letting go. I held on to everything. Relationships, outcomes, expectations, even material possessions. My attachment to these things was my security blanket, and the thought of releasing my grip terrified me. But I decided to give detachment a shot, and let me tell you, it was a game changer. I started by identifying what I was most attached to. For me, it was control. The need to know exactly how things would unfold in my life. I realized I was spending countless hours worrying about future outcomes I couldn't possibly predict. So I began practicing detachment through a simple breathing exercise. Each morning, I would breathe in and acknowledge my attachments, then breathe out and visualize myself releasing them. The first few days were brutal. I remember sitting there, trying to let go and feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Was I giving up? Was this irresponsible? But I pushed through, and by the 3rd day, something incredible started to happen. I began to feel lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Without the constant burden of trying to control everything, I found space in my mind for peace and clarity. I started to understand that detachment wasn't about not caring. It was about caring without clinging. This was a revelation. With this new perspective, I found myself responding to situations rather than reacting to them. When a project at work hit an unexpected roadblock, instead of spiraling into stress and worry, I was able to accept the situation and focus on finding solutions. Another surprising benefit of practicing detachment was how it affected my relationships. By releasing my expectations of how others should behave or what they should say, I created space for authentic connection. I was no longer disappointed when people didn't meet my unspoken expectations, and this led to more genuine, meaningful interactions. One personal experience that stands out was a conversation with a friend who had different political views than me. In the past, I would have been attached to changing their mind or proving my point. Instead, I practiced detachment, listened openly, and found that we connected on a deeper level despite our differences. Now, practicing detachment might not be easy at first, but I encourage you to give it a try, even if it's just for a week. Start small, maybe with something minor like your attachment to traffic moving quickly or your coffee being made exactly right. Notice your attachment, take a deep breath, and consciously let it go. You might be surprised at how liberating it feels and how much mental space it creates. It's not about becoming indifferent to life, but about engaging with it more fully without the suffering that comes from clinging. Teaching 2. Acceptance. Speaking of suffering, acceptance was the second Buddhist teaching that truly transformed my mind. Now, let me be upfront. I wasn't always good at accepting reality as it was. I used to resist difficult emotions, challenging situations, and uncomfortable truths. I would think, This shouldn't be happening, or I shouldn't feel this way. Sound familiar? But one day, I decided enough was enough. I made a commitment to practice acceptance every single day for a week, and the results were incredible. I started small, just with accepting my present emotions without judgment. If I felt anxious, instead of trying to push it away or distract myself, I would say, I accept that I'm feeling anxious right now. It felt strange at first, almost like I was giving in. But as I continued this practice, something shifted. By the fourth day, I noticed that by accepting my emotions, they actually moved through me more quickly. They didn't get stuck and fester the way they used to when I resisted them. One morning, I remember waking up to pouring rain when I had planned an outdoor activity. My first instinct was frustration. This wasn't how the day was supposed to go. But then I paused and practiced acceptance. This is the reality of today. It's raining. As simple as it sounds, that moment of acceptance completely changed my experience. Instead of wasting energy fighting against reality, I redirected it toward creating a beautiful indoor day. I made tea, read a book I'd been meaning to get to, and ended up having a deeply restful experience that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I also started applying acceptance to bigger challenges in my life. There was a relationship that had ended months before, but I was still struggling to accept it. Through daily meditation focused on acceptance, I finally allowed myself to acknowledge the full reality of the situation. It wasn't about approving of what happened or denying my pain. It was about recognizing what was true, so I could move forward. The moment I truly accepted it was like putting down a heavy backpack I'd been carrying for miles. I felt sad, but there was peace in that sadness. Incorporating acceptance into my routine made me realize that fighting against reality is the source of so much unnecessary suffering. It's not about being passive or giving up. It's about starting from a place of truth. Only when we accept what is, can we clearly see what can be changed and what must be embraced. It's a foundational practice that creates space for genuine growth and effective action. So if you're like I was and struggling with acceptance, my advice is to start small. The next time you feel a difficult emotion, try saying, I accept that I'm feeling this way right now. Or when something doesn't go as planned, acknowledge the reality before moving into problem-solving mode. Trust me, the mental freedom you'll experience will be well worth the initial discomfort. It's a teaching that has the power to change not just your mind, but your entire approach to life's challenges. Teaching 3. Compassion. The third Buddhist teaching that quieted my mind was compassion, both for myself and others. Now, I used to think compassion was just about being nice or doing good deeds. I was skeptical about how something so seemingly simple could have a profound impact on my mental state. But 1 week of intentional compassion practice completely shifted my perspective, and it became a cornerstone of my inner peace journey. I started with self-compassion, which was actually the harder part for me. Each morning, I would place my hand on my heart and say, "May I be kind to myself today?" I began noticing my self-talk, how harsh and critical it often was. Would I speak to a friend the way I spoke to myself? Absolutely not. So I made a conscious effort to treat myself with the same kindness I would offer a loved one. The first few days felt awkward, even a bit forced, but I kept at it, and gradually something began to shift. I remember one particular day when I made a mistake at work. My usual pattern would have been to berate myself, replay the error over and over, and carry the shame for days. Instead, I took a deep breath and said to myself, "This is a moment of suffering. Everyone makes mistakes. How can I be kind to myself right now?" This simple practice diffused the spiral of negative thoughts and allowed me to address the situation with clarity rather than emotional reactivity. The second part of my compassion practice involved extending kindness to others. I began with a daily loving kindness meditation where I would visualize sending good wishes to loved ones, acquaintances, and even people I found difficult. This wasn't just a mental exercise. It translated into how I interacted with people throughout my day. I became more patient in line at the grocery store, more understanding with the customer service representative on the phone, more present with my friends and family. One particularly meaningful experience was when I practiced compassion towards someone who had hurt me in the past. I didn't excuse their behavior, but I tried to understand the suffering that might have led to it. This shift in perspective didn't happen overnight. It was gradual and at times challenging. But by the end of the week, I felt the heaviness of resentment beginning to lift. I wasn't carrying the emotional weight of anger anymore, and my mind felt more spacious and peaceful. What surprised me most about compassion practice was how it affected my anxiety levels. By creating a kinder relationship with myself and others, I reduced the internal conflict that had been consuming so much of my mental energy. My mind became quieter, less cluttered with judgments and criticisms. I slept better, woke up more refreshed, and approached my days with a greater sense of ease and openness. Compassion is a practice that builds on itself. The more you cultivate it, the more naturally it arises. If you've never intentionally practiced compassion, I highly encourage you to start. Begin with yourself, perhaps with a daily self-compassion phrase, or by simply noticing when you're being harsh with yourself and choosing a kinder approach. Then extend that same kindness outward to others, even in small ways. You might be surprised at how this simple practice can transform your inner landscape and bring a profound sense of peace. How to bring these teachings into daily life. Now, I want to share how I integrated these three teachings, detachment, acceptance, and compassion, into my daily life to create lasting change. Because let's be honest, even the most powerful teachings won't make a difference if they remain theoretical. The key for me was establishing a consistent meditation practice. Each morning, I would sit for 20 minutes, focusing on my breath and gently incorporating these teachings into my awareness. I started by setting a clear intention for my practice. On Monday and Thursday, I focused on detachment, visualizing myself holding my attachments lightly and then releasing them. On Tuesday and Friday, I practiced acceptance, acknowledging whatever thoughts, emotions, or sensations arose without trying to change them. And on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, I cultivated compassion, first for myself and then radiating outward to others. This structured approach helped me deepen my understanding of each teaching while creating a sustainable daily practice. The meditation cushion became my laboratory for exploring these concepts, but the real transformation happened when I brought them into my everyday life. I started using simple reminders throughout my day. A small stone in my pocket for detachment, a bracelet for acceptance, and a heart-shaped note on my desk for compassion. These physical cues help me remember to practice, especially in challenging moments. I also found it helpful to journal about my experiences with these teachings. Each evening, I would reflect on moments when I had successfully practiced them and times when I had struggled. This reflection helped me identify patterns and develop greater awareness. For example, I noticed that my attachment to control was strongest when I felt uncertain. My resistance to acceptance flared up around certain people, and my self-compassion waned when I was tired. Throughout this week-long journey, I experienced both breakthroughs and setbacks. There were moments of profound peace and clarity, where my mind felt truly quiet for the first time in years, and there were times when I fell back into old patterns, attaching, resisting, and judging. But what made the difference was my commitment to beginning again, each time I noticed I had strayed from the path. This persistent returning is at the heart of these Buddhist teachings, not perfection, but practice. By the end of the week, I noticed significant changes in my mental landscape. My thoughts were less frantic, my emotional responses more measured, and my overall sense of well-being had improved dramatically. The constant background noise of worry, judgment, and discontent had quieted, revealing a more peaceful state that had been there all along, just beneath the surface. What I found most empowering about these Buddhist teachings was their universality. They don't require you to adopt any particular belief system or religion. They're practical approaches to working with your mind that can complement any faith tradition or secular outlook. They're based on the simple truth that all humans experience attachment, resistance, and unkindness, and that there are skillful ways to address these universal challenges. As I continued to practice beyond that initial week, I discovered that these teachings had a cumulative effect. The more I practiced detachment, the easier it became to let go. The more I embraced acceptance, the less I suffered when facing challenges. And the more I cultivated compassion, the more naturally kindness flowed in my interactions with myself and others. It wasn't about achieving some perfect state of enlightenment, but about creating more space and ease in my everyday experience. One evening, about 2 weeks into my practice, I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset. Without trying, I found myself fully present, not grasping at the beauty before me, but completely open to it, accepting its transient nature and feeling a warm sense of connection to everything around me. It wasn't a dramatic, mystical experience. It was quiet, simple, and profound. In that moment, I realized that these teachings had given me something precious, the ability to be at peace with things exactly as they are. This doesn't mean I never experience anxiety, resistance, or judgment anymore. Of course I do. I'm human. But these teachings have given me tools to work with these experiences in a way that creates less suffering and more freedom. They've helped me quiet my mind, not by suppressing or controlling my thoughts, but by changing my relationship to them. And that has made all the difference. All right, everyone, that wraps up our journey through the 3 Buddhist teachings that quieted my mind in just 1 week. It's been an incredible experience, not just implementing these practices, but also sharing them with you. Each of these teachings, detachment, acceptance, and compassion, has the power to create significant positive changes in your mental landscape. And I truly believe that if they could work for me, they can work for anyone. If you've been inspired by any of these teachings, I encourage you to try them out for yourself. Start small, maybe with one teaching that resonates most with you, and see how it feels. Adjust according to what suits your lifestyle and needs. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about making small, manageable changes that accumulate into substantial transformations over time. I'd love to hear about your experiences, so please drop a comment below sharing which teaching you're thinking of adopting or any questions you might have about starting. Your feedback and stories are what make this community so amazing and supportive. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future content. We have lots more insights and practices coming your way that you won't want to miss. Sharing this video with friends or family who might benefit from these teachings could also make a huge difference in their lives. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, the quieter your mind becomes, the more you can hear the wisdom that's always been there. See you in the next video, and until then, may your path be filled with peace. From all of us at Moonmind Temple, stay present, everyone.